Well, here we go again. We started with this guy here, Thomas Jefferson, President of the United States, very important guy. And he sent the Navy and the Marines over there to fight, hey, the grandpas of the ISIS and ISIL, the Taliban, the barbarians that follow Islam. Here's a picture, a drawing of the Navy and the Marines fighting the Barbary pirates, which is the grandparents of, well, actually, they're the grandparents of this guy right here who operated in San Diego, California, and was in charge of the 19 guys who flew into the World Trade Center in 2001. He did it out of San Diego and Northern Virginia. So we started with people like Thomas Jefferson and sending in, you know, the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, the Marines, the leathernecks. They were called leathernecks because in the Quran it says, smite the neck. It is a command for the Muslims to cut off the head, smite the neck. And so when the leathernecks who were on the ships and they were doing the hand-to-hand fighting with the Muslims, the guys, the grandpas of this character right here, they were fighting them and they put these leather things on the back of their necks. That's where they got called leathernecks. So you went from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli to the political correctness of the Marine Corps today. General Allen, this guy right here, General Allen went on and he said to the people of Afghanistan, when some of their Qurans got burned or desecrated accidentally, who cares, you know? It's like, come on, dude, grow up. And he came on, I've showed the video clip, and he says, to the noble people of Afghanistan, salam alaikum. It's like, really, why don't you go to hell? I'm tired of people being afraid and being scared. They don't have the guts. They don't have the huevos to stand up and go after these guys. Now, we found in the news, I drew a picture of a knife because in London, now they're calling it Londonistan, London, because the mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, who's a member of the Muslim Brotherhood, don't let him fool you. They're having so many people stabbed in acid attacks, all done by the Muslims in London. Clip number one. Clip number one.
Abu Halima uses social media to spew out his endless diatribe of extremist views.
Are you proud of what the Australians did in Gallipoli when they raped and pillaged and murdered innocent women and children? What are you proud of exactly? What are you proud of?
Halima preaches his hate not from the battlefields of the Middle East, but from London's outer suburbs. And much of his bile is now directed at moderate Muslim leaders here in Australia.
Is that Sydney needs to be renamed the land of the heretic scholars? The land of the heretic scholars, full of heretic scholars, Sydney.
What are you worried about?
Halima clearly enjoys the notoriety.
I thought you enjoyed broadcasting.
Yeah, I do.
But he's surprisingly shy in front of our cameras.
I think he is influential, so he is a concern, and that's why we monitor him.
New South Wales Deputy...
She's not taking him serious. Look, getting back to the violence, the knives, what they do, if they don't have guns. They don't have guns in London or England. So they're using knives and they're using acid. And that all goes back to the motif, the basic verse of all of the Quran on how to treat the ethical treatment of non-Muslims is Surah 860, you know, the crescent moon, the symbol of Islam. And that says, wage war, terrorize the infidel. In other words, kill the men. They got to go kill the men. 99% of the men are the people killed in the battle. If we were fighting each other, men on men are men, and they're killed. Okay, so when they're killed, guess what? Their wives and their children become widows and orphans. So the central motif of ethics in Islam is to kill the non-Muslim, create widows and orphans, whereas in Christianity, our central motif is James 1:27, true religion is taking care of widows and orphans. So Islam creates widows and orphans through violence, jihad. Don't let them fool you. That's what they do. Come on in. It's okay. And we know under James 1:27, true religion is taking care of widows and orphans. We got my man here, Kevin. He's doing some good work. How you doing, brother? Don't want to talk. Okay. I don't understand that, but that's okay. All right. Clip number 2.
Is a window on the thinking of the few Americans who joined the terrorists.
When I was living in America, I was just a normal kid, like sports and whatnot, growing up. watching movies and these things, so just like any other American.
But Ibn Zubair, as he calls himself, is not just any American. For the past 2 years, he's been fighting for Jabhat al-Nusra, a rebel group that has sworn allegiance to al-Qaeda. He insisted we change his voice to conceal his identity.
I don't hate America. That's my home. That's where I grew up. But the government and their policies as far as the Muslim lands, then that's another story.
The Somali American had dropped out of college to study Islam in the Middle East. He told us he was moved by the plight of the Syrian people under attack by their own government. So he decided to join the fight. Now he feels that he is under attack from his government. Zubair told us he narrowly escaped death when his house was hit during recent U.S. airstrikes in Syria. The U.S. has claimed that the strikes targeted terrorists plotting an attack on the West.
The people they killed, they died in there, was close friends of mine that I slept in the same room.
Okay, so now what we've got going on in the next couple of clips, we're going to show different towns throughout the United States. We're going to show Los Angeles, bad area. We're going to show Ramona Gardens. Hey, brother. Good to have you on television. Yeah, good to see you.
I didn't want to disturb you because I thought you were on camera, man.
We are, but that's okay. I'm glad you're on here.
Oh, man.
So my friend Kevin, we're glad to have him here, and he can confirm all the stuff we're talking about. Now you're a movie star, Kevin. He's my man. Okay, so we did Los Angeles and Ramona Gardens and the bombing gangs, and New Orleans and Brooklyn. And what's going on is you got a lot of the gangs, Sinaloa and Los Zetas, the gangs coming up from south of the United States over across the border, and they're now working with the Muslim Brotherhood and with the terrorists because that's how they fund themselves, and that fits in perfect with the motif of the Quran, Surah 860, where for them true religion is killing people and doing, well, that's why they have the knives and they're attacking everybody. And that's why we have people like this in San Diego. This guy was actually killed by us a couple of years ago because he was exercising his religious belief, jihad, and murdering people. Okay, and that goes along with Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam too. All right, clip number 7.
Go to the beach, I can tell you where not to go to the beach. I can tell you the good neighborhoods and I can tell you the bad neighborhoods. And that's what today's list is all about, the bad ones. When you grow up in Southern California, you learn that there's places to stay away from. Los Angeles has some straight-up scary neighborhoods. And let's find out where they are. So here's my top 10 worst neighborhoods in Los Angeles. Number 10, Rancho Dominguez. Rancho Dominguez is a former Spanish colonial and Mexican settlement in what was then known as Alta California. And now it's an unincorporated community in Los Angeles County. It's just south of Compton and north of Long Beach. And for the first half of 2017, the crime rate was about 443.7 per 10,000 residents. That's a lot of people getting jacked in Rancho Dominguez. My advice to anyone looking to move to the area, don't. A couple of years back, someone was stealing people's dogs. Now, I'm not talking just a couple. It was a whole bunch. What kind of weirdo steals people's dogs? Go to the pound, you lazy ass. This neighborhood had 29 reported violent crimes and 86 property crimes in the first 6 months of 2017. Some of you are saying right now, well, that's not much. What's the big deal? Well, this is the big deal. They have less than 2,000 residents. And it's also an older Hispanic community, and they often don't report crimes. Rancho Dominguez it's kind of a nightmare.
And again, they say the percentage is not that much. But when you look at the murder ratio, for example, in Tijuana now, in the first 3 months of this year, 459 people have been murdered in Tijuana, and that's the drug cartels working with the Muslims, with Taliban and ISIS down there in Tijuana. Now they're chopping off people's heads with chainsaws and things of that nature. So 459 murders is 918 for 6 months, is 1,836 for a year, which is unbelievable for one city. I mean, that's off the charts. Now, again, it's not very many people when you look at the total population, but I used to go down to Tijuana and Rosarita Beach and Ensenada. As a kid, I used to drive my car as a 16-year-old. I used to drive down all the way to Ensenada, about 60 or 70 miles south of the border, and come back. I never had a problem. Now, I will not even go to the border. In fact, my wife and I, when we got married back in 1970, 47 years ago, we had our honeymoon down in Ensenada. I was 19, she was 18. We had no problems. It was a piece of cake. Okay, clip number 8. Clip number 8.
Ramona Gardens. To the east of downtown Los Angeles is Ramona Gardens, an area that is and historically has been Latino. The Big Hazard Street Gang is from around here. The gang's connection with the Mexican Mafia makes this place a hub for drug distribution and other illicit activities. Internal struggle between the Latinos and the African Americans in this area is also quite common. On May 12, 2014, several gang members have attempted using firebombs and Molotov cocktails to drive black families out of the complex. The attackers, successfully identified as members of the Mafia-connected gang, were caught on tape by surveillance cameras scattered throughout the project. Number 8. Pueblo del Rio. Pueblo del Rio.
Now, it's interesting. He mentioned there the Mexican Mafia, and they're dealing primarily in drugs. Now, the drugs, most of the drugs are coming from South America, and the vice president of Venezuela is a Shiite Muslim, and he's working with the Muslim gangbangers down there with the drugs. They're coming back from Pablo Escobar and those guys down from Venezuela up through Central America into Mexico and into the United States. It's coming across with the immigrants. And then you have the immigrants coming in from Northern Africa, and they're doing the same thing, coming up those same trade routes. And I have a video here I'm going to show of myself heavily armed with a gun down on the border. And a week later, after we did that video, five ISIS came across the border right there and were captured by us. This very dangerous area. So you got the Mexican Mafia and the Italian Mafia. The Italian Mafia, they're heavy into drugs too. We know that, coming the same kind of drugs coming from Afghanistan. And also into Lebanon, you got the Lebanese. I think they're Maronite Christians, but they're like the Italian Catholic Mafia too. And they're all working together, killing people, murdering people, extorting people so that they can sell drugs and get rich. And that fits in perfect with Surah 860. Those people, these are all violent people who have sold their souls to Satan for a fistful of dollars, and they just get more and more cruel. Clip number 9. Clip number 9.
The city continues to rank as one of the best areas to live in the country. Some neighborhoods in New Orleans should be avoided at all cost. The projects of New Orleans are rife with crime, even today, and have a long history of violence and bloodshed. Some of the stories from certain project developments are...
Now, what's happening there, all of the stuff that violence you just watched there is all drug-related. That drug-related is coming from Islam. In fact, the word hash-hish became assassin, and the root word for murderer in Spanish, asesino. And assassin comes from hashish. And what that came from was years ago in Spain, when the Muslims occupied Spain for 700 years, and when the Muslims came across the movie El Cid, when the Spaniards were fighting for their independence and their liberty, the Muslims, before they would attack the villages to kill the men and rape the women and capture the boys under 12 years old and then turn them into janissaries, warriors for Islam, they would smoke dope, hashish. And so the Spaniards quickly understood when they saw in the early hours when it was still dark that people were lighting up and they were smoking hashish, that they knew they were going to be attacked. Also, under Islamic customs, evil customs, they hate dogs. The reason they hate dogs is because the dogs would see the Muslims getting ready to attack and they would start barking and warn the people of the village. So Muhammad stated in one of the hadiths that he hates dogs. And if you do any research at all on dogs and how they're treated in Islam, they are brutalized. And I've got pictures that are so disgusting, videos. So one guy grabbed a dog, swung it by the tail, and threw it off a building that was like 7 or 8 stories high. They hate dogs. It all fits in with that satanic, those who hate God love death. And frankly, when the Muslims pray to Allah, they're praying to Satan. They do not worship the same God as Christians. We, under Jesus Christ, our central ethics is James 1:27, caring for widows and orphans. Their central ethical message is to wage war, kill, terrorize, murder, assassinate, hashish, kill all the innocent people, create widows and orphans. All right. Clip number 3. Clip number 3. You can see we're down here on the Arizona border. And the reason we're here is because, well, frankly, this is where ISIS is coming across the border. And soon, ISIS, Ebola, people are going to be purposely infected with Ebola. This is all part of La Raza. The reason we're down here is, frankly, is because there's too few of us American citizens who really want to protect the America we know and love. Now we know, recently, 14 ISIS people, you know, the people that are over there in Syria and Iraq, capturing innocent people, abusing them, beating them, raping them, murdering them. Right over here, not too far away, is an old residence, a corral of John Wayne, and it's controlled by the most dangerous drug cartel in the world, Sinaloa. They control the whole entire 1,900 miles of the border, and Sinaloa is also doing the same thing as ISIS. Instead of using knives, they use chainsaws and behead people. We've got all the proof, evidence, and facts. It's all documented. And you can see here, you got a fence that's 18 feet high, but right next to it, you've got old. Now you'll notice down there that I'm wearing a pistol. I have a gun. I'm a former Marine Corps officer, Vietnam veteran with the infantry, and that's why General Mattis hired me for what I did, gathering human intelligence, surrounded by the North Vietnamese Army when I was 18 years old. Okay, so right there on that border, we knew we were being observed. We knew we were being watched. That night, in a driving rainstorm during the monsoon in Arizona, we had night observation goggles, night vision goggles, and we watched them come across right between two Border Patrol trucks. These are very dangerous men, and we know that at that very location there, a week later, they captured 5 ISIS right there, and they were coming up as part of the sanctuary cities to link up with the Mexican mafia and with these drug, narco centers of influence, the sanctuary cities of Los Angeles and San Francisco, San Diego, Seattle, and coming up here to be engaged in Surah 860. One of the easiest ways to make money in the world right now is if you want to be a drug mule and you want to sell drugs, it's a very dangerous game. In fact, in 2 clips from now, I will show where they took, and they murdered a guy right where we were there on the border. They took, before they murdered him, they took off his shirt and his pants and they hung him on a barbed wire fence, kind of like a scarecrow, to send a notice to all of the Border Patrol and people like me. You come across this border, we will kill you. We did go across that border. I did step across that border because right down about 100 yards to the east, it was just 1 or 2 strands of barbed wire, and they could walk right down the river and come up here, sell the drugs, murder, and kill people. Clip number 4. Clip number 4. Know that La Raza is involved in this. Obviously, the president of Mexico, the elected officials of Mexico, and then, of course, bribing people up here in the United States, which I would include with Harry Reid, Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, Obama, and people of that nature. So, we believe what we are doing is the will of the people in accordance with res publica, the Latin word for republic, res meaning king, publica, the people. The people are the king. We are not your servants, Obama, Congress, etc. You are our servants, and thank God that we still have the First Amendment, only because we have the Second Amendment. Folks, don't ever give up your guns. If we lose the Second Amendment, we're going to lose the First Amendment. We're going to be back there. Oh, there we go. Okay, and clip number 5. Clip number 5. Here on the border of Arizona. Now, you look behind me. This is very fascinating. This is a signal. This is a signal from the drug cartel. These clothes up here, and we were down here 8 weeks ago, and we know as a fact
it was proven to us by the Border Patrol these clothes had just been put up because they had not seen them. We came down here 8 weeks ago in the morning and we saw this. Now what we surmise, and we believe the Border Patrol, I think it's a pretty good theory, these clothes here, the day we saw them, they had no blood stains or anything on them. What we think is that Sinaloa caught one of their snitches, somebody they didn't like who had turned on them, grabbed the guy, stripped him down naked, murdered him, probably used a chainsaw to cut his head off. But these clothes had no blood stains on them. And they were hung up on this barbed wire 8 weeks ago. They're still here. We believe it's a signal for the people trafficking through here, including ISIS, Muslim Brotherhood, and other folks from around the world who are dangerous. They're not here to help America. But this is a signal to them. If you cross us, Sinaloa, the cartel, we will kill you. We will kill you. So we're on the west side of the San Pedro River, and as an 18-year-old United States Marine in Vietnam, I used to watch the North Vietnamese Army use rivers like this as compasses or freeways or highways, the yellow brick roads. Now what they do, there's a town south of here called Cananea, about 25 miles south, and the river goes all the way down to that little town. Now Sinaloa, ISIS, Muslim Brotherhood, Iranian Revolutionary Guard, which we have proof, evidence, and facts about how they infiltrate and come into the United States, they take all their folks down there to this little village, which is pretty dangerous because you've got the drug lords, you've got ISIS, you've got these Muslim Brotherhood folks, people, and they're dropping off their coyotes and their folks that they want to bring up to the United States. Well, it's real simple. Even like Vietnam, if it's 2 o'clock in the morning, pitch black, all you have to do is tell the folks who are walking up here, stay in the water. The water is only 1.5 feet, 2 feet deep at most, or right here next to them, it's dry and they can follow the river. So approximately 35 miles north of here is Interstate 10, one of the biggest freeways in the United States, connects East Coast to West Coast. And they can get up to that freeway, they get on a cell phone, they call their contact dashes in a van, loads up all of the illegal aliens, ISIS, Iranian Revolutionary Guard, Muslim Brotherhood, people of that nature, and then they farm them out to New York, up to Buffalo, Rochester, San Diego, Sacramento, Seattle. They can go all over the United States using simple stuff to overcome high tech. So they can come right across this river at 2 o'clock in the morning with no night observation devices, no maps, nothing. Very small amount of money, and with just a handful of people. Could you imagine when they caught the 14 ISIS in Texas? That's only 10%, so approximately 140 came across, of every one of them in reality.
And number 6, clip number 6.
We want to show you this disturbing display in El Paso. 2 billboards with threatening messages seen by thousands of drivers. Now, both are near I-10 in El Paso, and some worry these are drug cartel threats. Our border reporter Angela Kucherga has more.
The first vandalized billboard off I-10 reads Plata o Plomo, silver or lead, a common cartel threat targeting police or government officials in Mexico.
It's a little terrifying.
The warning, work with the cartel, take a bribe, refuse, and get a bullet.
Be a threat to somebody here?
The images from El Paso have spread quickly on social media.
Clip number 11.
268.
We traveled into the desert to an area near the Nogales border that is prime territory for drug smugglers.
If you were to draw a straight line from Mexico here, from Nogales, Sonora, down to Mexico where these drugs are coming from, it's the main corridor, it's the main highway.
Senior Officer Mario Morales knows this area along the border well. This is where he grew up. It has also become a strategic area for traffickers to move narcotics north.
I would not doubt it right now, we're being watched.
Dangerous place to be.
Very dangerous.
He pointed to evidence of that right on the roof of his patrol vehicle.
Probably it's a 7x62 by 39, a AK-47 round.
Morales says over the years it has been a cat and mouse game between law enforcement and drug smugglers. But this time, 2 seizures made here by off-duty police hit a raw nerve with a drug cartel that already had $10 million in drugs confiscated in Santa Cruz County so far this year.
On the day of the bust, 2 off-duty officers were out here roping cattle.
They're roping cattle?
They noticed something suspicious. What they see exactly?
From my understanding is they saw a vehicle drive in rather suspiciously. They went to the tree line. I believe they saw when it was loaded, when they popped the trunk, and there were bundles being thrown in the trunk and in the back seat. And as the vehicle exited, they were intercepted.
The off-duty officer sees 200.
Clip number 12. Clip number 12.
Concern for national security perspective about the open border. And of course, our political class here doesn't want to talk about the national security threat at the border because when you start talking about it like that, maybe we don't start talking about amnesty and we don't talk about the sort of irrelevant things that won't protect us from the dire threat on the border. We take much more aggressive approach, and we'd have, I think you'd have a military approach being offered as opposed to the typical just build a wall, which may not even be sufficient given the threat.
Quickly, we're running out of time. Is the Trump team aware of this, Tom?
Oh, I think they're generally aware of it. We haven't been in communication with them about it, but they need to really pursue this. And if they've got serious folks on this issue, they're mildly aware of it. Okay. And certainly they're sensitive about the border security issue generally. But I don't even think they understand, or at least my impression is generally that few understand just how serious the threat is in terms of the Islamic terrorism threat as a result of this open border in Mexico.
Tom Fitton, thank you so much for your time. Will you come back?
All right, and this is why they come up here. These next clips. Clip number 13.
There are many differences between regular people and drug kingpins. Not only is their life full of violence and unexpected events, you just never know when the police are going to come bang down your door. Their homes are also, well, a little bit nicer looking than ours. People call it narcoarquitectura, the drug lord architecture. Think mansions, swimming pools, luxurious cars, secret passages. Even their own tombs have air conditioning, and it almost feels like a celebrity's fortune. So join us as we have a look inside some of the most controversial drug kingpins' homes that have ever existed. Oh, and
money. Money, money, money. The love of money is the root of all evil. Now, it's interesting because in Ecclesiastes, I think it's 10:19, it says, food, wine, and money. Money solves all problems. Food and wine to be merry, and money solves all problems. But if you use money as a tool, like a tithe, to help widows and orphans, which is the central theme of Christianity, if you use money to help widows and orphans, or if you become a narco dictator working with the Muslim Brotherhood, Surah 860, and you go to war with all those who are not Muslims so that you can have the big fancy houses and all the women and all the other stuff, then that is how evil exists. Malum in se. Malum in se. Evil does exist, and it is our duty as Christians to stop it, to share the gospel, of course, but also in accordance with Romans 13:4. Don't let them kill you. Don't let them intimidate you. Do as I do, and get yourself a concealed weapon permit and protect yourself, your wife, your family, those you love. It's going to get worse and worse and worse. And as I started this show with a knife that they're calling London now, the Afghanistan of England, because they're having so many people killed and stabbed and wounded by knives. And then the other favorite tactic of Islam is to use acid to melt people's faces. I'll be back. God bless you.